how to, write the critical appreciation, or sorry, not the critical appreciation, the substance or the summary of this poem. And then we will move on to writing the critical note on this poem. Add a critical note. So in my last class, I had explained these processes, and I hope that uh, since I had already given you, uh, given this poem in your group, you have read this poem. So I will just share the poem with you now. Hopefully you can see the poem. So this is the poem. The title of the poem is Adlestrop, and it is written by Edward Thomas. Edward Thomas. Edward Thomas is one of the well-known poets, and I do not know whether you have read any of his poems, but he was a British poet. He also wrote some prose works. He was actually a late 19th century and early 20th century uh, poet. He died very early at the age of 39, but still he has left behind a number of excellent poems. Now, let me look at this poem and sort of try to understand this poem. As you know, as I had told you earlier, that when you get a poem, you will have to obviously first read the poem a number of times, and then only you will be able to understand the meaning of the poem. So let us read the poem Adlestrop by Edward Thomas. Yes, I remember Adlestrop, the name, because one afternoon of heat the express train drew up there unwontedly. It was late June. The steam hissed, someone cleared his throat, no one left and no one came on the bare platform. What I saw was Adlestrop, only the name, and willows, willow herb, and grass, and meadows sweet and haycocks dry, no whit less still and lonely fair than the high cloudlets in the sky. And for that minute, a blackbird sang close by, and round him, mistier, farther and farther, all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. So this is the poem, and we have to look at the way the poem begins. That is how Edward Thomas begins the poem. He begins this poem by a kind of an emphatic, you know, statement, or rather a single word, yes. So it is clear that he is remembering a past incident, something that had happened earlier, and he is remembering that. Yes, then there's this full stop. I remember Adlestrop. And then this dash. So there is a pause after the word yes, and then, of course, after these words, I remember Adlestrop. So the poet is recollecting, he is looking back at his experience earlier. And obviously, Adlestrop is the name of a place. That much we can understand. The name, so he remembers the name, as he says in the second line of the poem. Because one afternoon of heat, the express train drew up there unwontedly. So here, the poet is saying that he was traveling. He was traveling by a train. And one afternoon, uh, he's mentioning in the last line of the first stanza, it was late June. So uh, it was summertime. And obviously, he was traveling by train and it was quite hot. The weather was quite hot. And what happened to this train? It was an express train, not an electric train. So, of heat, because of the heat it generated, the engine, it had to halt at this station, this very small and insignificant station. Because one afternoon of heat, the express train drew up there unwontedly. Unwontedly, this word means that the train had stopped there. It was not an usual stop, not a regular stop. So it was unusual for the train to stop there, but it had to stop because of the heat. And it was summer, and the heat was becoming difficult for the driver to uh, move the train. So in the first four lines of the first stanza, we are given a sort of, a kind of a picture of what happened one late June afternoon. Now, in the second stanza, the poet goes on with his uh, description. The steam hissed. So the sound of the steam escaping, someone cleared his throat. So it was a quiet place. The station where the train had stopped, it was a quiet station. There were no people there. And the only sounds that came to the poet's ears were the hissing of the steam and someone clearing his throat. No one left and no one came on the bare platform. So there was actually, the train did not have a scheduled stop there. So no one had uh, alighted, or no one boarded the train. No one got on the train. So the platform was bare. It was a bare platform, and we can understand that it was a really very insignificant and small station where trains did not habitually stopped. Now, in the third line, the next part, he says, what I saw was Adlestrop, only the name. So the poet, when he looked out of the window, he was able to see the name of the station, and that was Adlestrop. So it was an unfamiliar name for the poet. He did not know actually what, he had never gone there. So obviously, he did not know much about uh, this station. Now, was Adlestrop, then there's this dash sign, again this pause here. So it did not strike him as having any uh, significance, only the name. And then when he looked out of the window, he could see the the natural scene. And willows. Willow, you know, it's a kind of a tree from which cricket bats are made. Willow herb. The willow herb is a kind of a flowering plant, and the poet could see uh, these willow trees on the side of the station. The willow trees growing, and also he could see the willow herb and grass. So obviously the grass, the meadow was there, and meadow's sweet. So the field beyond, and haycocks dry. Now, what is an haycock? What is a haycock? It's a small conical stack of hay left in a field to dry before adding to a haystack. So after the corn has been reaped, after the harvest, it is sort of shaped in a conical way. You must have seen it in the fields after the harvest. It's found in the villages. So the common scenes that one might be able to see, one might come across, those were the scenes that the poet saw from the train, from his compartment window. And these were not at all, uh, to him, these scenes did not appear to be of any significance. No whit less still and lonely fair than the high cloudlets in the sky. So the poet could also, the poet could also obviously see the clouds, small clouds. That's why they are referred to as cloudlets, small clouds. And the whole atmosphere was very quiet, no with less still. There was a kind of a stillness, a kind of a calm and quiet. It was a calm and quiet place, and lonely because uh, in the second stanza we had seen this description on the bare platform. So there was no one about, no human being, no animals also. So the poet uh, looked out and he couldn't find anything significant, just these, you know, the natural scenery, lonely fair than the high cloudlets in the sky. So as just as the cloudlets were floating in the sky in a kind of a lonely way, uh, underneath in the field, it was a very lonely place. Now, until now, this poem reads like any other poem, nature poem, a recollection of the poet's thoughts. Now, in the last stanza of this poem, the twist comes in. And now, in the last stanza, you will notice how the poet will be describing the reason why he has written this poem, what struck him as very significant and extraordinary. So, in the last stanza, and for that minute, a blackbird sang close by. So, suddenly, the stillness of this place was broken. The stillness of this place was broken by the song of a blackbird, that is a cuckoo. So, it sang for almost a minute close by, and the poet could hear its song. And round him, mistier, farther and farther, all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. So obviously, when the blackbird stopped, its song was kind of taken up, and it appeared a very mysterious kind of a mysterious kind of a thing for the poet, how the entire place became full of bird songs. So the place came alive suddenly with the songs of birds. And the poet recalls how in that kind of there was a kind of a mist, or he is referring to the weather, a kind of a stillness. He uh, heard the other birds, different types of birds, who took up this uh, the song of the blackbird. So the whole place was reverberating with the song of the blackbird, the other birds. Oxfordshire is a county. As you know, England is divided into several counties, just as our country is divided into several states. So it's in the southeast part of England, Oxfordshire, and Gloucestershire. This is uh, in a kind of a place. It is another county, Gloucestershire, and uh, the spelling is like this, but it is in the southwest of England, but it is pronounced as Gloucestershire, not as Gloucestershire. So the pronunciation is a bit different from the spelling that you see here. So the point of this poem is why the poet was, while the poet was traveling by train, suddenly the train came to a halt in this insignificant little station called Adlestrop, which was near these two counties, Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire, and suddenly this blackbird sang out. And when it stopped, all the birds where they could not be seen. The poet could not see them, but he could hear their songs. So it's a kind of you can say this feeling of utmost kind of a uh, beautiful songs of the birds which came to his ear. And that is why this insignificant little station has been etched in his memory. Otherwise, there would have been no reason at all to remember this station, which was just like any other ordinary station. So now that we have tried to sort of you have understood the meaning of this poem, or what the poet is trying to communicate, you will notice one thing, that this is a small poem, a short poem of 4 lines each. Each stanza has 4 lines. So 16 lines in all. So this is not a sonnet. That much you can understand. And now we have to write the substance or the summary of this poem. And then we'll write the critical note. So we have to take in the main points of this poem. And we have to keep in mind how to write the substance or summary of this poem. So let us look at, I will just dictate slowly the substance, and you may, if you have your pen and exercise book ready, you can take it down. Otherwise, you can just listen, but I think it would be better if you take it down. So first, the substance or the summary of this poem. So we have to write like this. The poet in this poem uh, remembers the poet in this poem remembers uh, a railway station, called Adlestrop, where one June afternoon, the express train The express train he was traveling in. The express train he was traveling in came to a stop. Came to a stop. Full stop. So the first sentence of this substance would be, the poet here uh, talks about or remembers a railway station
স্যার
named,
স্যার ট্রাভেলিং এর পরে আরেকবার একটু বলুন।
কোনটার পরে, after which, traveling in, traveling in in came to a stop. Okay, so this is the first sentence of the substance or summary. The poet in this poem talks about, or you can write, remembers a railway station named Adlestrop, where one June afternoon the express train he was traveling in came to a stop. Full stop. The next sentence now. The poet was surprised. The poet was surprised that the train, the poet was surprised that the train halted, Halted, halted means stopped. The poet was surprised that the train halted at such a, the train halted at such a desolate, desolate means lonely, kind of a place, desolate, 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 desolate station, full stop. The poet was surprised that the train halted at such a desolate station, full stop. So this is the second sentence of the substance. Hope you have been able to write this. Okay, now let us continue. Neither did anyone, neither did anyone get into the train. Neither did anyone get into the train. So you can see that no one left and no one came on the bare platform. So we have to write this. Neither did anyone get into the train, nor did anyone, nor did anyone alight from it. Alight from it, full stop. ALIGHT. Alight means in Bengali to নেমে যাওয়া, ট্রেন থেকে নেমে যাওয়া. Alight from it. ALIGHT. Neither did anyone get into the train, nor did anyone alight from it, full stop. Next, only the sound, only the sound of, only the sound of the steam hissed, it's written here. Only the sound of the steam and the clearing, and the clearing of one's throat, of one's throat was heard, full stop. Only the sound of the steam and the clearing of one's throat was heard, full stop. So the poet could hear only these sounds. Next sentence. There was, comma, there was, comma, of course, comma, there was, comma, of course, comma, a fascinating, a fascinating, FASCINATING, a fascinating floral, FLORAL, a fascinating floral veil, 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 all around, A fascinating floral veil all around. A fascinating floral veil all around with floating cloudlets. Cloudlets. With floating cloudlets in the sunlit horizon. In the sunlit horizon. Full stop. So this sentence is there was, comma, of course, comma, a fascinating floral veil. Floral means flowers. So this willow herb that is mentioned here. All around with floating cloudlets in the sunlit horizon. But suddenly the poet, but suddenly the poet, but suddenly the poet heard the notes, but suddenly the poet heard the notes of a blackbird. Suddenly the poet heard the notes of a blackbird close by. Full stop. But suddenly the poet heard the notes of a blackbird close by. Full stop. Soon all the birds of soon all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire. Look at the spelling and uh, write it down. Soon all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire joined in creating joined in creating a beautiful joined in creating a beautiful maze, M-A-Z-D, maze of mystery, maze of mystery. It's a web of mystery, full stop. So here we come to the end of the substance. So this is the substance. Hopefully you have been able to write it down. I'll repeat the last line again. Soon all the birds of Oxfordshire and Gloucestershire joined in creating a maze of mystery. So the substance is complete. We have read the poem, we have understood, we have tried to write the substance, that is, in a short way, we have written the main points. We have put the main points on paper. Now, the task remains for us to write the critical note. So you know that you remember that you have 12 marks for writing the substance or the summary, and you have 8 marks for writing the critical note. So it is also very important. So make a small heading and write critical note beneath this substance. And then write, we have first to look at the tone of the poem and all that. Write down the intention of the poet here, the intention of the poet here is to record, the intention of the poet here is to record his impressions, his impressions, impressions of a small, comma, of a small, comma, rather unknown, rather unknown, and solitary railway station, comma, solitary, Solitary, solitary railway station, comma, Adlestrop, full stop, Adlestrop. So the intention of the poet here is to record his impressions of a small, comma, rather unknown and solitary railway station, comma, Adlestrop. Next, the poem is simple. The poem is simple and in a straightforward manner, and in a straightforward manner, it offers us a pen picture. It's a single word, pen picture of a desolate, natural surrounding. Desolate natural surrounding. So here we have to write about this, that the poem is simple and in a straightforward manner it offers us a pen picture of a desolate natural surrounding. Now, a pen picture, of course, is a written description, uh, kind of a biographical one. Now, in the next line, we have to write, make a paragraph and write, the poem is, no doubt, the poem is, no doubt, subjective in tone. That is, it expresses personal feelings. That is why we are calling it subjective in tone, and clearly bears out the poet's own feeling about a lonely railway station, which he happened to come across, on his journey, by a train, full stop, by a train.
স্যার ওটা আরেকবার বলুন।
Yes, the poem is, no doubt, subjective in tone, and clearly bears out, bears out, that is, it explains or shows the poet's own feeling about a lonely railway station which he happens to come across on his journey by a train, full stop. Okay, the next line, the poet's reference, the poet's reference to the herbs, grass, grass, haycocks, haycocks, the song of the blackbird, and the patches, patches, and the patches of cloud in the sky. The song of the blackbird and the patches of cloud in the sky well brings out, well brings out the poet's love for nature. Well brings out the poet's love for nature. And his power of meticulous observation, Culous. Meticulous. This means a very minute observation. Meticulous observation, full stop. So hopefully you have been able to write this sentence. His power of meticulous observation. Next one, continue in the same paragraph. The romantic spirit of the poem, the romantic spirit of the poem. So it's a kind of a romantic, how the romantic poets used to write about nature. So it's in the similar. So we can write the romantic spirit of the poem is also evident. The romantic spirit of the poem is also evident. The romantic spirit of the poem is also evident in the poet's description. In the poet's description of the poet's description of the loneliness of the place. Loneliness of the place. Full stop. The use of such words, the use of such words, the use of such words or expressions such as, now write down certain words which we found in the poem within double inverted commas. First write bare, B-A-R-E, comma, put a comma, then write within, again within double inverted commas, still, then comma, lonely, comma, then again within double inverted commas, no one left and no one came, within double inverted commas. So all these are there in the poem, The use of such words or expressions as bare, still, lonely, no one left and no one came creates directly an atmosphere of silence in the poem. An atmosphere of silence in the poem. Full stop. So all these words and phrases, it creates an atmosphere of silence in the poem. Full stop. The sound of the clearing of the throat of a person, the sound of the clearing of the throat of a person emphasizes, emphasizes, emphasizes the loneliness of the place. Emphasizes the loneliness of the place. Full stop. The sound of the clearing of the throat of a person emphasizes the loneliness of the place. Full stop. Now make a new paragraph. So we have had two paragraphs. Now the third paragraph. The simple diction of the poem. Now we'll be talking about the use of words. The simple diction of the poem. D-I-C-T-I-O-N. Diction, as you know, it means the choice of words. The simple diction of the poem well matches the simplicity of the thought. Full stop. The simplicity of the thought. The simple diction of the poem well matches the simplicity of the thought. Full stop. The poem consists of 4 stanzas. You have seen that. The poem consists of 4 stanzas, comma, each having 4 lines. Full stop. Each having 4 lines. The poem consists of 4 stanzas, comma, each having 4 lines. Full stop. The second and fourth lines of each stanza, the second and fourth lines of each stanza rhyme together. R-H-Y-M-E. Full stop. The second and fourth lines of each stanza rhyme together. There are certain figurative, there are certain figurative, Figurative, figurative expressions in the poem. Full stop. Figurative expressions means the figures of speech. For example, comma, there is, write down this, the name of this figure of speech, capital A, antithesis, 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 in the phrase put within double inverted commas, no one left and no one came, full stop. So this is antithesis. Antithesis means putting two contradictory things side by side, which has they have different meanings. That is opposite meanings. No one left and no one came. Full stop. The apparent contradiction, the apparent contradiction, APPARENT, apparent contradiction, CONTRADICTION, of the language, the apparent contradiction of the language emphasizes the idea, emphasizes the idea contained in the line. So the idea that the poet tries to convey here through this expression, that is well explained. Full stop. We also find alliteration. Alliteration, it is another figure of speech. ALLITERATION. Alliteration in the repetition, REPETITION, repetition of the word farther, farther, FARTH here. Full stop. So here we come to the end of this writing this critical note. So this poem, obviously, it is a short poem as we saw, but it has a number of elements. It records the poet's wonder sense of happiness, how in an insignificant station where the train had halted when he was feeling very uncomfortable because of the hot weather and the hot steam and all that, the train halted, and how his feelings changed from a feeling of boredom to a feeling of gladness or happiness because of the beautiful songs of the birds which suddenly came through to his ears. So we have written the substance or the summary of this poem and also the critical note of this poem. Now I'll finish this class here, but I want to tell you something, because